your very real feelings of being intimidated by him. So you took a picture of him. Did he see you taking that picture, I guess, at a gym?
Yes, he saw me taking the picture. I was trying my hardest not to let him see what I was doing. I kind of like hid behind a piece of equipment. I saw him there. This was in March. I took the picture and he immediately saw me, stood up, put his hands on his hips, stared me down.
Away from all the earlier noise, all the previous debates, and all the fragments of information that have circulated online for months, what we are now seeing is something different. Something sharper. Something that feels like the story has entered a new chapter. The latest updates surrounding the Daystar controversy, particularly the growing tension around Joshua Brown, have triggered an entirely new wave of questions, discussions, and escalating skepticism. And the reason is simple. More people, completely separate, unrelated from different environments, are now describing behavior they say made them uncomfortable. And these accounts echo earlier testimonies in ways that many find hard to ignore. For a long time, people assumed that everything surrounding this situation was confined to one disputed incident at a beach house, one police investigation, and one internal family conflict. But with the latest updates, particularly Kendall's account, the statements from extended family, and the growing scrutiny of mismatched narratives, the story has evolved far beyond that. What was once a debate about a single allegation is now a broader discussion about patterns, inconsistencies, missed interviews, and the possibility that the original investigation left far too many stones unturned. This is not just another recap of old information. This is the unfolding of what many are calling the new phase of the saga, because the people stepping forward now have no reason to protect Daystar, no reason to defend the lambs, and no personal ties to anyone involved in the original conflict. Their accounts, therefore, carry a different kind of weight. The central issue that appears repeatedly in the latest update is the allegation of a pattern of dishonesty, or at least a pattern of shifting explanations. According to several sources, some of whom claim to be from Joshua Brown's own extended family, Brown allegedly changed or contradicted his version of events more than once when talking about the beach house incident. These sources insist that his story was not consistent day to day, nor consistent when he spoke to different people, and not consistent even when speaking to authorities. They claim he altered timelines, minimized details, and then later added details he previously denied. Whether these contradictions were intentional deception, nervous confusion, or misunderstandings remains open to interpretation. But what makes the situation more troubling for observers is that these inconsistencies didn't emerge in isolation. They emerged in the context of a situation where credibility mattered immensely, where even small changes in the story could carry major consequences. The frustration many have expressed online reflects a very human reaction. When someone is fighting serious allegations, the one thing people expect is clarity. The one thing people demand is consistency. And the one thing people scrutinize are contradictions. So when family members, the ones who know a person's tendencies, habits, and patterns better than the general public ever could, step forward and say they believed he was being manipulative or evasive, it naturally amplifies the skepticism. The extended family members, Rebecca and JW, reportedly contacted the police voluntarily, without being summoned, simply because they felt authorities needed to understand that Brown, in their view, had a history of shifting narratives. Whether this is true or not is not the point. The point is that even within his own circle, some people were worried enough to alert investigators. What complicates things further is the alleged conflict between Brown's version of the beach house incident and the version shared publicly by Joni Lamb. The two accounts apparently do not line up, according to witnesses who have followed the case closely. Some say Brown minimized his interaction with the child, suggesting it was brief and insignificant, while others claim that Joni's explanation implied something entirely different, something that required justification, protection, or clarification. The problem is that when two people within the same ministry offer two incompatible accounts, observers immediately begin to question which version was closer to the truth. Were both of them simply misremembering details? Or was one version crafted to shape public perception? Speculation intensified because the public has already been primed by earlier Daystar controversies to question the transparency of leadership decisions. When Jonathan and Susie Lamb were removed from the ministry after raising concerns, the decision was controversial from day one. Many felt it cast a shadow over everything that followed, including the official statements the network later released. So when Brown's beach house story didn't align with Joni's narrative, critics argued that this discrepancy fueled the perception that the ministry was invested in controlling a particular storyline, regardless of whether that storyline matched witness accounts. Another major point of public outcry centers around the Colleyville Police Department, which many critics believe closed the case too quickly. According to these critics, the investigation was not exhaustive enough. Key witnesses were allegedly never interviewed, most notably the nanny, a crucial figure because she was reportedly present during some of the interactions at the beach house. Several community members, including Denise Boggs and Debbie Leonard, also claimed they had relevant information, but were never contacted by authorities. That omission raised a red flag for many who felt the investigation lacked the depth it required given the seriousness of the allegations. The argument many people online repeat is straightforward. Investigations involving potential misconduct around a child should never be rushed, and no relevant witness should ever be left out. The fact that individuals with potentially significant information were not interviewed has led observers to speculate that the case deserves a second review, not merely for the outcome, but for the integrity of the investigative process itself. For many, it isn't even about guilt or innocence anymore. It's about ensuring that every adult who might have seen, heard, or experienced something related to the situation had the opportunity to speak. And this is where the story takes a sharp, unexpected turn. A woman named Kendall, who has no connection to Daystar, no involvement with the Lamb family, and no known history with Joshua Brown prior to these events, stepped forward with her own account. An account many consider one of the most alarming parts of the latest update. According to Kendall, she encountered Brown multiple times at her gym, and each time, the behavior she described was deeply unsettling. The first incident reportedly occurred when Kendall took a photo of Brown, because she recognized him from online discussions related to the controversy. She claims that when he noticed, he reacted by staring intently at her and her husband for what felt like several minutes. So long, in fact, that she described the moment as tense, intimidating, and unnerving. The second encounter was even stranger. She claims Brown positioned himself on a workout machine in a way that felt intentionally performative, and kept his eyes fixed on her for nearly 10 minutes while moving in a bizarre, unsettling manner. She described the behavior as so strange that she later wondered whether it had been meant to provoke fear or discomfort. The third incident, according to Kendall, was the one that caused her to seriously consider reporting the behavior. She said Brown walked past 5 towel dispensers, 5 opportunities to get what he needed, just to walk directly beside the treadmill she was using. And instead of simply grabbing a towel and leaving, he repeatedly reached in, pulled out towels, and dropped them into the trash while staring directly at her between movements. The repetition, the insistence, the prolonged eye contact. She interpreted the entire sequence as deliberately intimidating. These were not casual gym interactions, she argued. They were calculated. What truly unsettled observers, however, was the phrase Kendall used when describing Brown's stare. She said his eyes looked like beady black eyes. The same exact phrase that Susie Lamb had reportedly used long before Kendall ever came forward. The matching description shocked many people because Kendall had no connection to the Lambs, no reason to know their phrasing, and no involvement in the original dispute. The consistency, therefore, raised the uncomfortable question. Were multiple women describing the same type of expression because they noticed the same thing? Or was it a coincidence amplified by the emotional context of the situation? The internet, predictably, leaned heavily toward the former. This is also where the alleged contradictions in Brown's police interview come back into focus. Critics point out that Brown initially claimed he never saw the child go upstairs at the beach house. Later, however, when pressed, he reportedly admitted that he knew she was going up there. To many people, this sounded like more than a simple misunderstanding. It sounded like someone trying to avoid admitting too much too early, only to be forced into adjusting the story later. Combined with the family's claim that Brown had repeated access to the child without consistent supervision, these contradictions are now being viewed as part of a larger pattern rather than isolated mistakes. And then there is the elephant in the room. The allegations that key testimonies were overlooked. People have repeatedly said that the nanny, the counselor, and others familiar with the household dynamics should have been interviewed. They argue that these individuals held information that might have clarified inconsistencies and either strengthened or weakened the original claims. Omitting these voices, whether intentional or accidental, leaves the entire investigation open to scrutiny. How can people feel confident in a conclusion reached without speaking to everyone involved? The ongoing discussion has made one thing clear. The public does not feel settled. They do not feel that the earlier explanations were enough. They do not feel that the case was fully examined. And they do not believe that the latest testimonies, especially from someone like Kendall, who had no motive to insert herself into the situation, can simply be ignored. What makes the latest update even more explosive is that it arrives at a time when trust in leadership, institutions, and mega-ministries is already fragile. Many feel that the Daystar situation, from the very beginning, has been full of PR-style statements, conflicting family testimonies, rapid organizational decisions, and a perceived desire to move on rather than confront the details head-on. And when people feel they are being rushed past the truth instead of guided through it, suspicion grows. Right now, public opinion is deeply divided. Some believe that all of these accounts, family statements, Kendall's encounters, contradictions in interviews, illustrate a troubling pattern of behavior that was overlooked or dismissed too easily. Others believe that the entire saga has become a tangled web of misunderstandings, emotional reactions, and unrelated stories blending together into something bigger than it should be. But there is one sentiment nearly everyone agrees on. This story is not over. Not by a long shot. Because at its core, the latest update is not just about Joshua Brown. It is about the way institutions handle allegations. It is about whether truth is examined or avoided. It is about trust, broken trust, uncertain trust, and the difficult process of trying to rebuild trust after damage has been done. Most importantly, it is about the people who stepped forward. People who had nothing to gain. People who say they simply wanted the truth to be acknowledged. People who felt something wasn't right and believed it was their responsibility to say so. And whether these allegations ultimately prove something deeper or not, their voices matter. Their concerns matter. Their experiences matter. And the public discussion surrounding these concerns is now larger than Daystar, larger than the Lamb family, and larger than any single accusation. People want answers. People want accountability. People want clarity. And as long as contradictions exist, testimonies remain unheard, and new witnesses continue to emerge, the public will keep pushing for the full truth to be revealed. No matter how uncomfortable, complicated, or controversial that truth may be. What do you think about the latest developments? Do these new accounts change your perspective? Does the investigation need to be reopened? And do you believe the pattern people are pointing out is real or coincidence? Share your thoughts below. I genuinely want to hear your perspective. And if you're following this saga closely, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss the next update.